There we go. How's it going?
Hey Betsy, how are you?
Doing pretty good. I am gonna, let's see. I gotta figure out how to do this. Okay, I sent you a link to join the Pear Deck. I went
Great.
and got that up. The co-teacher link. I hope I did that right.
Yeah, I think you did. I think it's perfect. Here we go. Yeah, and I'm going to be video muted tonight because I'm landlocked to my bedroom. I have three kids running around tonight, and so
That sounds good. Mine are grown, so they're a little less noisy.
oh,
Wait a minute. I'm not muted. Why did it say that? Oh well. Okay, it's gone now.
okay, so I am. Let's see. Why am I? There we go.
Go ahead and put that up there.
And I'll drop that into the chat periodically when they come in. I can never remember if in the past I've had some that when they come in, they can't see the previous commentary in the chat, and some like someone said at one point that they could.
I usually just put it in there 500 times and then,
Yeah,
but then I guess sometimes my kids would say, well, they put it in there 500 times. And I'd say, well, that's because anybody that wasn't already in there can't see
yeah,
it. So,
yeah. I'm going to open the teacher attendance.
I should have looked through this more carefully because I know some changes were made.
Well, the oh, you mean in the session material?
Yeah,
Yeah, so
doesn't look too much difference.
yeah, Richard went through it. Richard did his own. I was with Richard on two what's today? Thursday, Tuesday, um, Monday. God, I can't even put it together. But anyhow,
I know,
but
I've lost
it's
track.
yeah, I know, right? But it seemed very smooth. Seemed very smooth. My kids were in that session. I actually was sitting in my room with my kids, with my students while they were doing it, while I was um, doing the co-teaching, and they really they got a lot out of it. It's good.
Good. Well, hopefully it'll go almost smooth tonight. We'll see. I did a Gov one for the first session. I've never done the Gov one before, and I was like, "Oh, I'm a little shaky on this."
Oh,
I guess
well.
just because I hadn't done it before. So
Yeah, it's always takes a couple of times. I feel like I'm trying to jump back on the bicycle after being out a year. It's been good to get back into the content, but um it's just been a different year with the way the schedule works. And I've got 17 kids as opposed to like almost 100. And
wow,
it's been
that's nice.
it's nice. It is. I left Buckhorn and went to Alabama School of Cyber Technology and Engineering, and didn't teach it last year. And this year I'm glad to get it back, but I left Buckhorn because to be honest, I was bored. I really what like I did the same thing. I taught AP history, APUS from the time I showed up to the time I left, and now it's grass is always green on the other side, because I've got three preps now, which I only teach one class. I teach for 1 hour on Monday and Tuesday currently, um, but anyhow, nonetheless, I miss just doing that and just being saturated in that, because I have my brain is in a bunch of different places now. So
Yeah, this is the first year in a very long time that I've taught the same class all day long.
oh yeah, that's and
And
it's nice.
It's nice, but it's also, well, and we went to a block schedule for the first time ever. So that's been a big transition. So
Yeah.
I guess the most I teach it is 4 times in a day. When we were on a 7-period schedule, I would have had to teach it 6 times a day. And that gets a little, by the end, you're thinking, first,
Right.
it's hard to remember what you've said already to each
Sure.
class. And I have to say, did I already tell you this?
Yeah. Yeah. I teach, I've got 4, I teach a course called the Evolution of Social Engineering. And I have it 4 times a day, and then I have AP sandwiched in between. So I've got 5. We're on it's 60-ish, 60 minutes, 55 to 60 minutes. And I'm like, and I'm used to being on the block and having a little bit of a break, and or at least being able to take a minute to sit down and breathe, even if I need to say, hey, I need 5 minutes, or I give them a a quick check, whatever, where I can sit down and take a deep breath. I feel like I'm sprinting through my day right now. But I enjoy it. I do enjoy it. It's different. It's definitely different, but it's been a good experience. I am okay. Wait, hang on. Let me see. Co-teacher. There we go. All right, now I'm in.
Oops, I didn't mean to do that. Put that back up there for him. Now, did y'all have to move for you to go to this new school, or was it already there where you are?
It was actually, well, I came in last year in the first year of the opening of the physical building. They were on the campus of Oakwood University in a couple of buildings there, their first 2 years, and then this past year we opened up a brand new state of the art building here in Huntsville, and um, so I just it's right here in town. I just, instead of driving north away from town, a little further from where I live, out to kind of the suburban area, I drive in straight into town. So we're basically right in the heart of our research district, over here by the Space and Rocket Center and UAH and that and all that. So
Sounds good.
yeah, it's a neat little campus. It's small, but it's growing. We're just putting in tennis courts and soccer field this year, and we don't have a gym or any of that yet, so we'll get there. So what sessions are you doing at the conference?
I'm
Okay,
gonna do, Rhonda asked me to do kind of it's sort of a session, but I'd say it's kind of more of a working group. She asked a few experienced teachers to do a couple sessions where we're going to just try to create rubrics to put with the A+ curriculum. Because I think that A+ in general decided that all the contents needed to add the my mind just went blank. The scoring guideline, the scoring, what are those things called? It's so crazy I can never remember the name of this. And that's what I'm supposed to be doing a session on.
the rubric,
It's scales, the proficiency scales.
proficiency scales. Yes. I got you.
So they are going to
That's
need,
right.
yeah. So they're going to need to
I'll be
create
in that
all these.
session. Yeah,
Oh,
that's right.
good.
Yeah,
Great.
yeah.
Because I'm going to count on you to, kind of be the expert. I think she kind of picked several people who know what they're doing. And she wants us to just work on creating some proficiency scales for them to kind of get a head start on
Yeah.
adding those into we're going to start, I think, with World and APUSH and create some proficiency scales for the histories that can be added into their A+ curriculum to give to the teachers that are in that program.
It'll be really good. That's our scoring is proficiency score. It's standards based. We got mastery, proficiency as the only two grades that we give that are passing are mastery and proficiency. And we don't do out of 100% or any of that. And then we have emerging, which is you're almost there, and then you've got beginning, which is like you're not there at all. And so it's been like drinking from a fire hose, but it's a really good thing. So I like that approach, the whole proficiency, scale approach to not only like as an overall grade, but on even individual assignments too. So,
well, that's what they use, although they call it a mark scheme rubric, but for IB.
Okay.
And I liked it a lot for IB, but of course I don't have any choice in the NPS about what our grading system is. So I can use them in my classroom, but then I have to convert them to a 0 to 100, grade scale, because that's what we have to use. So, but it really converts pretty easily to that, I think. I know it was really easy to convert that IB mark scheme to a 1 to 100. And I've really been doing that with AP rubrics anyway. Our history department just kind of created a 1 to 100 scale with the AP rubrics for SAQ, LEQ, DBQ. And we just convert over to a 100-point scale to put it in the grade book. So I think even if your school doesn't, it mandates that you use the 100-point scale, you can still use those proficiency scales and just convert it.
Yeah.
Well, it sounds like you know a lot about it. So
I don't know about that. I feel like when I get through year 3, maybe I can start saying it's even like teaching AP. You get in, you really need 3 solid years, and I feel like I don't have a solid handle, other than the fact that you build a rubric and identify when somebody's got it, when they have complete mastery of it, and we've got our own standards for mastery and proficiency and all that, but the biggest thing is well, what do you do if you don't have it, and that's where it gets tricky, and how many times do you give them to retake and to retake, and so that's been a big kind of debate that we've had at the school, but we can definitely chat about it for sure.
Yeah, that sounds like a really good thing for us to kind of think through too. And that kind of issue, how many, how do you keep them up to the standard when they know there's not really a grade penalty for not getting it done?
Yeah, you gotta have motivated students for sure. And for our kids, they're on 1-year contracts, and so if their work ethic is not up to par, but their grades are, or vice versa, it's like you could potentially not be invited back. I know that's not obviously not the same in all schools, but
that's the way our school used to be, but it's not anymore. So
remind me where you are again.
I'm at Lamp High School in Montgomery.
Lamp.
So,
I need to talk to you because we have been trying to get in touch with the Model UN people at Lamp. We started a Model UN this year. I'll touch base with you about it, but we the girl that I have that's basically spearheading everything, she's kind of my leadership student, and I'm just helping out, sponsoring, but we were trying to get involved. We thought you guys were running a Model UN conference, and we wanted to try to get involved. But anyhow, I'd love to get plugged in with whoever's running that.
Hey, it used to be me, but right before COVID hit, I had done it for 5 years, and I said, I got to take a break from this because it's a lot. We run that conference. The last year I ran it, there was over 600 kids at the conference, and it was a lot. And our team traveled a lot, and it was just a lot. And I said, I got to step away from this. So, but I can definitely, if you want me to, we'll just stay in after we get done, and I'll give you some information. But
That's
I can give
great.
your contact information to our SG and to the guy who's the new sponsor, and they can
Okay,
plug you in with that.
that would be great. That'd
I
be
know they would love
fantastic.
for you to come. So,
That would be great. Well, you let me know when you're ready for me
all
or
right,
I.
I'm ready when you are.
All right, all right. I'm going to go ahead and admit them now.
Oh, I got to get the thing back up.
I'll wait.
There we
I'll
go.
wait just a second. There we go. All right, here we go.
All right, I'm going to give you just another minute to all jump in. Those of you that have done this before know the drill. Those of you that are new and have never done a virtual study session, I want you to go to joinpd.com. You can see this being projected up on the screen. Put in that join code and join the Pear Deck. In order to get credit for participating, you have to join the Pear Deck and you have to go ahead and put in answers. My name is Miss Russell. I teach at Lamp High School in Montgomery, Alabama, and our co-presenter today, oh my gosh, my mind just went blank. Introduce yourself.
Jamie Reese from Alabama
Jamie
School of
Reese. Oh my
Cyber
God.
Technology and Engineering. Yeah, good to see you guys. I'll be in the chat.
It's late at night for
No,
old
no worries,
people
Betsy.
like
It's okay.
teachers too. Histories. Yes. So we are going to try to help you guys out a little bit tonight. We're going to mainly focus on two elements of the different kinds of questions on the AP exam, the APUS exam. We're going to work some with multiple choice today, and we're going to work some with SAQ today. And we're going to, in the meantime, go over some of the content from units 1 and 2. Hopefully all of you have gotten through units 1 and 2 by now, but if you haven't, it's fine. Go ahead and give it a try. Put things into the Pear Deck, even if you're not sure it's right. We all learn a lot just from looking at each other's successes and mistakes in our attempts on the Pear Deck. So don't be shy. If I do need you all, I'm going to give you just another second with this Pear Deck projection to get into the Pear Deck. Looks like you're doing a pretty good job of getting in there now. We've got 24 students connected. How many students do we have? 30. So we still have a few of you that I need to jump into that Pear Deck. I'm going to let that project for just a minute longer, and then I'm going to minimize that, and we're going to get started. We do need you to turn off your mics, but I am perfectly fine with you turning that mic back on if you want to ask a question or add something. I'd love for you to do that. It's a lot more interesting for you and for us if you participate and interact. So I would love for you to unmute and ask a question if you have a question or if you want to add something to the discussion. Also, it really is helpful if you turn on your cameras. I know you don't want to, but if you would turn on those cameras, it really helps us because it seems like we're talking to real people instead of just a computer screen. So if you could turn on those cameras, that would be great. If you have any questions, Mr. Reese is going to answer those in the chat for you if you don't want to ask them out loud. And also we're going to ask that you go to the little screen and change your name by adding your school. So we know what schools are represented here today. And if you're a teacher that's joining us tonight, if you could notate that in the chat or by your name, we want to make sure we give you credit for being here. Wow, we still got kids jumping in. And I'm going to have to go ahead and start this in a minute here. Okay, I'm going to minimize this join code now, but it will still be up in the corner, and Mr. Reese is going to keep putting it in the chat. So if you haven't joined yet, the join code is up in the corner of your screen, the right-hand corner. You're going to go to Join PD, and also Mr. Reese is going to put that in the chat for you. Okay, you can see our initial instructions here. Again, make sure your microphone is muted, but feel free to unmute if you want to ask a question. Try to go ahead and turn that camera on so we can see you, and go ahead and answer this little question, a little startup question here for us about the Articles of Confederation. Good job. Several of you are already answering that question. Very nice. Going to give you just a couple more minutes to work on that and get everybody into the Pear Deck. I see Colton putting a lot of SFI in that answer. I like that. A lot of specific facts to support his answer. We always want to do that in all our answers. I like what Camden said about that they realized weaknesses of the Articles of Confederation and that it needed to be rewritten because it did not give enough power to the federal government. Very nice. All right, everybody's looking pretty good on this. Let's see if everybody's logged in there and type it up an answer. If you're not positive your answer is exactly right, that's fine. Don't be embarrassed. Just give it a try. A lot of you putting things about it was too weak and they needed a stronger federal government. All right, that was a very good job there. We're going to move on now. We're going to talk for just a minute about the different elements of the exam. As I said, today we're going to practice a little bit of short answer, SAQ, and some multiple choice as well. There's 4 different types of questions on the AP exam. There's multiple choice, which we're going to start out with today. Every multiple choice question on the any AP history exams, but in particular, we're talking about the APUSH exam, has a stimulus attached, which means there'll be some kind of a document that you're going to read or look at, a map, a political cartoon, an excerpt from a historian's point of view, a letter, something like that is going to be attached to every multiple choice question. So there's a lot of reading and content interpretation that you have to do well on these questions. They're not your standard, just pick the correct answer out of a list of answers. You have to be able to read and interpret documents or to look at and interpret documents. And so we're going to practice that in our session today, and you need to be practicing that a lot as you prepare for the exam. The good news is usually there's about 3 questions for each document, so you're not going to have to read a document for every single question. You'll have a document and then 3 questions attached to it generally. So we're going to see some examples of that here today too. And then we have the SAQ questions, which are sort of short answer questions that will have 3 parts, and you will give a brief answer, usually 2 or 3 sentences to each part of the short answer question. And we're going to practice those today too. So let's look at the multiple choice section. Your exam is going to begin with 55 multiple choice questions, and you have 55 minutes to answer those questions. So a minute per question. That's really a good amount of time if you know the material, but that does you have to include the time to read or analyze your document too. So that slows you down a little bit, but it's really pretty doable, but we have to work our way up to that. This portion of the exam is 40% of your total exam score. And if you rack up enough points on the multiple choice, you will be well on your way to a qualifying score coming out of that multiple choice, even before you start writing. So you really want to know your content really well and have done a lot of practice of multiple choice so that you can really kind of rack up those points and pad up that score going into the other sections of the exam. And as we said, every question will be stimulus based, and it will generally have 3 questions, but it can have anywhere from 2 to 5 questions for each stimulus. All right, we're going to practice a little bit here. We're going to start with just reading this little passage and answering this one question. So I'm going to give you guys just a minute or 2 to read that passage and answer that question. see a lot of you putting option A. Couple of C's, a couple of D's, a few C's, few D's. All right. Most of us have got a few C's, a few D's. Now let's look at these answers and kind of talk through it for just a minute and think about kind of working up some strategies for getting the correct answers to these questions. Now on the AP exam, those of you that have taken an AP exam before or have been practicing and working in your class, one thing I always hear from my students about AP multiple choice is there's 2 right answers. How am I at least 2 right answers? How am I supposed to know which one is the one they think is right? 2 of these seem right to me. And that is the trick to doing these AP style questions. And one of the reasons it's really a good idea to take AP classes is because that, of course, is exactly how the ACT and SAT work as well. So this is good practice for ACT and SAT as you get ready to go to college. And it's true, they're almost always going to have a correct answer and then what we call a distractor. And a distractor is that answer that also seems right. And you're trying to figure out which one is right. Usually there's at least 1 or maybe 2 answers that are pretty clearly wrong and you can eliminate those. And that's a really good strategy to eliminate the ones you know are wrong and narrow it down to your correct answer in your distractor. And then look for clues in the document to see what the correct answer is. Often how we can weed out that distractor and narrow in on the correct answer is by looking at the document itself. If 2 of the answers seem like they could be correct, but only one of them is supported by the document they gave you, then they want you to put the answer that's in the document. So let's look at the ones we can eliminate. Does this document say anything at all about religion? No, I don't think so. The only mention of religion really here is the fact that Bartolome de las Casas is a priest. But he seems to be the one that's on the side of the Native American people. So I think we can eliminate religion, and no one really went for religion. Good job. What about fear of native power? It does not seem like there's anything in this document that indicates that the Spanish were afraid of the native people. So based on this document, we can probably eliminate D as well. So we can narrow it down to probably racism, A, and desire for wealth, C. And probably because of the way he describes what's going on here, the way that the Spaniards are mistreating them, I think you're correct. The majority of you picked A. The correct answer that they're looking for here is racism. Now, with another document, you maybe could have substantiated C, desire for wealth. But they really don't say very much in this document about economic activity or wealth. So the answer they wanted you to give was A, racism. And most of you got that, so good job. Okay, let's move to the next one. Now, this is the same document, but we've got another question attached to it. So I'm going to let you, this time you don't need to read the document because it's the same document. This one we're getting kind of a bigger spread of answers. Various ones of you have given all of these answers. I'll give you just another minute. The majority of you, a slim majority, seem to be going with D. All right, let's go through our little thought process on this one too, real quickly. A, Native Americans. Now, clearly it's not the Native Americans who he perceives as the problem here. So I think we can eliminate that one because it's the Native Americans who he's advocating for. So convincing them they're being mistreated really won't help with the reforms he's looking for. The Catholic Church. Does the Catholic Church is it the Catholic Church that he describes as abusing these people? Not really. He himself is a Catholic priest. So I think we can assume he's not really trying to convince the Catholic Church in this particular document. The people that he's describing as harming the Native American people are clearly the conquistadors or the military people, not the priests in this instance. So I think we can eliminate B as well. Now, so we've got it down now to C and D, the conquistadors and the monarchs of Spain. The people he's describing as being the abusers are the conquistadors. And I think really the kind of bottom line of getting to the right answer for this one is who actually has the power to change this behavior. And I think most of you are putting D, and that is the correct answer. It's the monarchs of Spain who actually have the power to tell the conquistadors that they need to change their behavior and change the way that they're treating the people of their colonies. So I think Bartolome de, and if you know anything about this document, you would that would be even easier for you to determine, because you would have already studied this and you would know that that's who Bartolome de las Casas was sending this document to in order to get better treatment of the native people. So that's a good example of how even without knowing much about what's going on here, you can often figure out the answer to the question with good critical thinking skills and good analysis. But if you know a lot about it, it's so much easier to kind of eliminate those wrong answers and get to that right answer. And I think most of you probably have studied de las Casas. That's very much something that most of us teach in our curriculum, and you probably already knew that's what this document was about. And that makes it much, much easier to get the correct answer. Okay, one more question with this same document. Give you just a minute to answer this one. A lot of you are putting C. I'm going to go ahead and give you a hint, a heads up. That is true, but does this document actually say anything about that? That's a really good trick for us. We're looking, I think a lot of times we look at those answer choices and say, well, I know C is true, I'm going to put down C. But is this particular document actually talking about disease? I don't think so. So we can trick ourselves out of the right answer when we kind of just skip the document, don't focus on the document, just look for an answer that looks right to us. And I don't even think, now it says implied but not stated. I don't think disease is even really implied in this document. Okay, so A, Spaniards were sympathetic to Native Americans. I think the key word that makes us know A is the wrong answer is the word many. I don't think there's any indication in this document that many Spaniards were sympathetic to Native Americans. What about the Spanish face strong resistance? Well, that is true at times, again, but does this document describe any kind of resistance? No. So we're going to go ahead and go with B. The Catholic Church was trying to help Native Americans. And what intimates that, or what implies that, is the fact that Bartolome de las Casas, who wrote this document that is clearly advocating for Native Americans, was a priest, and it tells us in the attribution of the question that he was a priest. So we can assume that the Catholic Church, some members of the Catholic Church at least, were advocating for the Native Americans, because the man who wrote this document, which is clearly advocating for Native Americans, is a priest. So we're going to put B as the answer for that one. And this was a really good example of the fact that you really have to read that document carefully and use it as the basis for your answer most of the time. Some of these other answers, like C, is definitely true, but that's not what this document is about. So that is not the correct answer for this question. Okay, now we've got another document. Let's read this one. give you a little bit longer because you have to read the document this time. I've got a few of you answering. All right, you guys are doing a good job on this one. I think most people are zeroing in on the correct answer. Let's really quickly go through this one. We're going to speed this up just a little bit. A, fear and mistrust should dominate interactions. Well, there really doesn't say anything in this document about fear and mistrust. They seem to be getting along pretty well. So most of you correctly eliminated that one. B, the native peoples of America needed to be converted to Christianity. Now, although William Bradford probably believed that, this document does not say anything about that. So we know that's not the answer. C, Native Americans should be incorporated into the new colony. Not only does this document not really say that, but William Bradford and the Plymouth colony gave us no indication that they thought that would be a good idea. And we know from, hopefully in your class, you kind of discussed the fact that they tended to pursue more of a policy of segregation, of them living separately from the Native Americans, although they did have some interaction, as you can see in this document. So most of you put D, that is the correct answer. What the main idea of this document is that William Bradford expresses surprise. And where we see that surprise here is where he says they marveled at it. They marveled at it. Surprised that Native Americans could learn English and serve as cultural intermediaries, which is what he's describing, of course, here in this document. And Squanto is someone who a lot of teachers are going to give you for SFI. He makes very good, as is Samoset, make very good SFIs and essays or short answers about this topic. Short SFI is specific factual information that you use as evidence to support your historical contentions you're going to try to prove. All right, we've got another question with this same document. Oh, this one's a little harder. This is an example of a question that the answer really isn't in the document. So you're going to have some knowledge, some things that you've learned from the content in order to correctly answer this question. Because I do not really think the answer to this question is explicitly in this document. But I see that most of you know this. Awesome. Most of you are getting this correct. This is one of those questions that you've either learned the answer or you haven't. And most of you seem to be zeroing in on the idea that the Plymouth colony was established because of religious belief system. They were religious separatists and they were looking for a place where they could freely practice their faith. That is the correct answer. Answer A. B, they were ordered to establish an outpost to watch the French in Canada. That is not correct, although that might be one of the reasons that the King of England let them go there. That is not their motivation. They hope to find gold or lucrative trade in furs. That is more true of another colony than this colony. This was the religious separatist colony. And although they did hope to be able to earn a living there, and D, they were hoping to escape crushing debt. This was not a debtor colony. That's more applicable to Georgia. So most of you seem to definitely know that A was the correct answer. They were religious separatists. Very nice job. And again, this is an example of the fact that sometimes you just have to know the content, and the document is not going to be as much of a help to you. Okay, one more question with this document. This one's a little bit tricky. Okay, I've got a lot of you putting A and a lot of you putting D. And this one is a little bit tricky because actually the majority of the settlers of Massachusetts, of what would become Massachusetts, were farmers. But that's not really why there were people already in that area, even before, which is what the question asks. It was already becoming important, not because they thought it was a good place to farm, although that is what the Plymouth colony and the Massachusetts Bay Colony colonists tended to do overwhelmingly, but it really wasn't that great of a place to farm. I'm sure you've discussed in your class about how the soil was kind of rocky and the climate wasn't great for farming. That is what they did there. But what it was really good for naturally was fishing. And so the correct answer is fishing. It's right there on the coast and there's lots of fish there. So fishing is what was drawing people there already, even before the Massachusetts colonies are developed. And of course, you probably remember from your class that they actually accidentally ended up in Massachusetts. That's not even where they had a charter to go. And it's not where they were supposed to be. They got off course. So they intended to be further south. In an area that was more useful for farming actually than Massachusetts was. So the correct answer should be fishing. Again, this is one of those questions you probably just needed to learn this. You needed to know the content in order to correctly answer this question. Okay, let's move on to another set. This time we have a visual document instead of a written document, a map, in fact. With this kind of document in particular, make sure that you are looking at every single bit of the information they give you. Look at the key. If there's an attribution to the document, like a who said it, when, where, the date, they give you that information for a reason. Use it. So for instance, it says British settlement of the 13 colonies from 1700 to 1775. Look at those dates. Use every bit of information that they give you in these documents because they help you to decode the right answers. All right. Most of you are zeroing in on the correct answer here. Very nice job. I'm going to give you just another few seconds because we want to keep moving. A couple of these we can definitely eliminate because they're just not true. A, the large size of British colonial populations relative to American Indian populations. From 1770 to 1775, that is just simply not true. So that is not the correct answer, and that does not affect British settlement, the settlement patterns of the British settlers anyway. Okay, B, British recognition of Native American sovereignty. No, of course we know that's not true. The British didn't recognize Native American sovereignty because if they did, they wouldn't be consistently pushing them off of their land. They don't see them as a legitimate nation, and that's why they think it's okay to kick them off their land. C, the orientation of British colonies towards producing commodities for export to Europe. And D, British government attempts to impose greater control of the colonies in the late 1600s. That wouldn't really have anything to do with settlement patterns. So we're going to narrow it down to C. And really, almost all of the economy of the colonies at this point is involved in that transatlantic trade that I'm sure you learned about, in the colonists developing either raw materials or agricultural goods and shipping them back to Europe for sale. And in order to do that, you need to be on the coast. And what does this map tell us? The densest populations are right up there on the coast, and then they slowly move west. But the largest concentration of population is going to be right there on the coast, because that's where it's easiest for them to engage in their economic activity of trade with Britain and Europe. Okay, let's move on to the next one, which should be attached to that same map. Let's give this one a try. So that last one was a cause question. This one's an effect question. Once in a while, my students get confused about that. If it's a cause question, it has to be something that happened before, basically, or at the same time. If it's an effect question, it has to be something that happens after. Most of you are doing a very good job of zeroing in on the correct answer to this question. Okay, a decrease in coastal population. That is not true. Coastal populations did not go down. So that is just not the right answer. How about C, a decrease in economic importance of slavery and other forms of coerced labor? Actually, in this time period, the economic importance of slavery and other forms of coerced labor is going up, not down, especially in the middle and mainly the southern colonies. So that one's not correct. And D, an increase of trade with French Canada. That is not correct, because during this time frame of the map, we know that there was a war with the French Canadians. By the end of this time, the French have been kicked out, and it's just the British in charge. So that's not the right answer. So as most of you correctly deduce, B is the correct answer. An increase in conflict between British settlers and American Indians. As the colonists move west, of course, they're continuously displacing Native Americans from their land, and that is going to cause them to fight back, and that's going to cause conflict between the British settlers and the colonists and the Native American people. And that's exactly what's going on here. And almost all of you got that right. And you just want to look at the map and think about that. You can tell from the map that settlement's moving west. As they're moving west, just think through it logically and think, okay, who's already on that land? Native Americans. When they keep moving west, they're going to be kicking Native Americans out of their land, and that's going to be causing conflict. Okay. And one more question with this prompt. Then I think we have one more set, and we're going to move on to the SAQ. We're doing pretty good. This is a pretty tricky one. You got to really do some thinking on this one. And I think the key to correctly interpreting this to get the answer to this question is looking at the direction of, or the trend here. What is the direction that this settlement is moving? It's moving from east to west. It's moving from the coast inland. And that's the key to answering this question correctly. And this is something we talk about a lot in late period 2 and early period 3. So I'm sure you've heard a lot about this in your class. Okay, A, development of economic differences between northern and southern colonies. That most certainly happened, but it didn't happen as a result of the settlement pattern we see on this map. So that answer isn't correct. It's true. It's one of those examples of an answer that is true factually, but it doesn't really answer this question because it doesn't relate directly to what we see on the map that they gave us. B, colonists' difficulties in effectively resisting the British military during the American Revolution. I don't think this settlement pattern has a whole lot to do with that either. Maybe a tangential relationship, but not a direct relationship. C, significant portion of colonists who remain loyal to the British. I'm not sure what that would have to do with settlement patterns either. So that is true again, but it really has nothing to do with this map. So the one that is directly connected with the map, and we're talking about westward movement, that's what this map depicts, is D, growth of social tensions between backcountry settlers and coastal elites. The old Bacon's Rebellion, right? And all of those things that are going to happen coming down the road here. So growth of social tensions between backcountry settlers and coastal elites. That is what is really going to be fostered by this westward movement settlement. Those eastern well-established coastal elites have all the money. They have most of the control in the legislatures of the colonies, and the backcountry settlers didn't get all of that free territory and money. They have to fight the Native Americans. They want the legislature to help them, and the legislator doesn't want to because they're not benefiting from it. All that leads to tensions between the backcountry farmers and the rich. I always call them fat cats in my class, and then I noticed my kids were putting fat cats in all their essays, and I was like, don't put that in your essay just because I said it. But I like to call them fat cats, those rich elites of the eastern seaboard. So that is the correct answer to the question, D. Good job. Most of you got that. Okay, and one more set of questions. Really, we're going to go through these really fast, though. I'm just going to tell you the right answer, and we're going to move on. So give this one a good try. Oh, we always love that Sugar Act. Always good for a question that's about the causes of the revolution, isn't it? Or the causes of increasing tension. Getting quite a variety of answers on this one, too. All right. This one, again, the answer is in the document. You don't have to know a whole lot about this if you correctly interpret the document. The colonists accused them of trying to control exports, but this really wasn't about exports. It was about imports. And because the North American colonies did not produce sugar. And it says right there, if you carefully read and correctly interpret this document, it says the word revenue in it multiple times. They're trying to get money, and their argument is we're trying to get money in order to protect you, because you keep getting yourselves in fights and then we have to go protect you. And so because of that, some of the revenue to pay for your defense needs to come from you. So the answer is D, levy taxes aimed at raising revenue rather than regulating trade. Now they had some other taxes before and after that were trying to regulate their trade, but that's not really according to this document, what the purpose of this particular act was. It was to raise revenue for colonial defense. Okay, let's answer this next one really quick. All right, and make sure you read the questions carefully and notice that this is a not question. Which of these does not represent the views of Prime Minister Grenville? That trips us up a lot. You're in a hurry, you're nervous, you're reading the question quickly, and you don't notice that it says does not instead of does. Be on the lookout for that and carefully read your questions before you start answering. All right, the answer to this one is, whoops, I accidentally forwarded that slide. I didn't mean to do that. The answer to this one is D. He wanted to reward the colonies through his extension of salutary neglect. Salutary neglect is a great word to throw into any essay about any subject concerning the lead up to the revolution. They love that word on the exam. And hopefully y'all learned about salutary neglect. It's basically the idea that for a pretty long period of time there, the British Crown and the British Parliament kind of just let the colonists do whatever they want. As long as they were making some money off it, they kind of just let them do their thing. And this document really is the beginning of the push to repeal that, to pull it back, to say, you know what, we've let you do what you want for long enough. It's about time you start pulling your own weight. And as we discussed in that last question, this is Grenville saying you need to start paying for your own defense, and the trade system needs to be set up to benefit England, not just you. And so the answer is D. He did not want to reward the colonies, and he did not want to extend salutary neglect. All of those other things are correct, but D is not. So D is our correct answer. Okay, you guys did a good job on this. I feel like you know a good bit about units 1 and 2 and the beginning of unit 3. That's exciting. All right, let's move on. The very beginning of unit 3. Okay, we're going to move on and discuss a little bit of how to answer the short answer questions. Now, for some kids, it seems like the short answer questions are quite easy, and they'll tell me those are the easiest questions. I don't know what the big deal is. But then I have plenty of kids who are good students who just really struggle with short answer question. Sometimes we call them SAQs. So if you hear SAQs, that's what they're talking about. It seems like it would be really easy, but something about it for some of us is just kind of tricky. So we're going to try to give you some practice and some hints and tips and tricks of how to kind of thread the needle of doing your best on this and getting lots of points on the exam for this. I have scored this 3 years on the AP exam, so I kind of know how it works now, but hopefully enough to give you some help with this. What will be required of you on the AP exam? You're going to have 4 questions on there, but you only have to answer 3 of them. So that's the good news. And you get a choice for one of them, which is more good news, right? So you have to write your answer to each question on a lined page that is designated for that response. So basically what that means is they'll give you one piece of paper with lines on it, and you have to put all 3 parts of the answer for that question on that page. Anything that is not on that page, that is outside the borders of that page, that is on a different page, probably will not be scored, and you will not get credit for it. So that's one of the tricks to this. You have to keep your answer on that page. So you'll have 3 pages, 1 for each of those short answers, and you have to get your whole answer on that page. And you need to make it fit on that page. If you're a big writer, practice writing smaller, because you're going to run out of space and you're not going to finish your answer. So if you like to write really big, don't do that. Write small. All right, the first SAQ will always be required, and it will contain a secondary source stimulus. A secondary source, what is a secondary source stimulus? Does anybody want to unmute and tell us what a secondary source stimulus is? Somebody's typing it in there. Good job.
I'm not ready. Withdraw from class though. Not so late here, Marla.
I'm ready.
Yeah, I'm not good at biology.
Katie, you want to tell, you unmuted there, Katie. You want to tell us what a secondary source stimulus is? Or did you unmute accidentally? I think it was an accident. Blakely says it's a source from someone who is not personally there. Often it is a historian that is analyzing and interpreting historical information. Good job. Usually this will be two historians and they will ask you to compare and contrast their interpretation. That seems to be almost always the way this first question works. Okay, let's do an example. And as you can see, that is exactly what we see here. Two different historians who have sometimes the same interpretation. And we're going to do a compare and contrast always with this format. What if they give us those two historians? I promise you what they want you to do is compare and contrast their interpretations. All right, I've got some pretty good answers coming in here. Okay, and I want you to notice that this prompt says briefly describe. It doesn't say identify. If it just said identify, you could just name a difference. But since it says briefly describe, you need to give a little bit more detail. Give an example of what what the interpretation of each author is, and then how they're different. Okay, one more thing about this type of question. If it's a compare and contrast question, you cannot talk about just one of them. You have to talk about both, and you cannot talk about them separately. You can't just say Crane said this and Zagari said this. You have to say Crane says this, and that is different from where Zagari says this. So you have to talk about them in relationship to each other, not separately, or you will not earn this point. Very nice job, Sarah. I like what I'm seeing there. Sarah, if you just add one more thing for me there, and I think you're going to nail this, such as Zagari viewed the effects as a good thing that created many opportunities in politics for women, such as, and give a couple examples. And then I think you've got an excellent answer there. Give me a couple examples from that document of her evidence to support her contention that it was a good thing. Mr. Reese, I cannot remember how to show one of the students' answers on the screen. I used to know how to do that.
If you click on the star,
I did that. Is
and
it
then you're going to go to show responses at the bottom
of,
of the
oh,
bottom
there
of the
we go.
paragraph.
There we go.
There you go.
Okay, let's take a look at this one. One major difference between Crane and Zagari's historical interpretation was their view of the effects on women. So you've got a nice, clear answer to the question there. Crane viewed the effects as unchanging. For example, Crane stated that the revolutionary movement was neither radical nor a watershed for American women. Now, one thing I want you to change here, though, moving forward, Sarah, is do not ever quote. No direct quotes from the document. I can tell you 100% for sure in the scoring process, we are directly told if you see quotation marks, stop reading at the beginning of the quotation mark, start reading again at the end. Now, they're not going to take the point off for a direct quote, but you will not get credit for it. So the key word here is paraphrase, 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 paraphrase. Do not directly quote the document because it will not, you won't get credit for supporting your argument with a direct quote. So let's everybody avoid that. Don't quote the document, no direct quotes, paraphrase and pull specific evidence out, but paraphrase it. Okay. So instead of quoting, what could we put in there that's a specific example that Crane gives us in her argument? Let's see. I'm going to let you go back and see if you can add that in and change it for us, Sarah, but let's look at another one now. See, hide response. That was really good. The one thing I want us to change there is no quotes, paraphrase that evidence and give us some specific examples. Kennedy says that women, according to Zagari, women were celebrated for their political contributions. Let's give us a couple specific ones that she lists, and that'll make that even better. So we want to put some nice specific evidence from the document to support our answer. I think most of you are getting the idea here, though, of how to kind of compare and contrast those two documents. Compare and contrast those two. Here, let's do this one. Those two contrasting historical analysis. Okay, that's not the same word. Okay, I thought we had Colton's there. But I'm not doing it right, I guess. Okay, we're going to move on to the next question. I think you guys are doing a pretty good job on that, though. The thing to keep in mind with this first question format, and one more thing I forgot to add about that. This first question is always going to come from units 3 through 8. Only units 3 through 8 will be fair game for this question one. It's always going to be a secondary source document. And every time I've ever seen one, it's been 2 historical analysis or 2 historical documents with different historical interpretations that you're going to be asked to compare and contrast. Okay, let's move on to the next question with this same document. B. See if we can get an answer for B. And now for this B answer, this is the way it's usually going to work. They're going to ask you to present some evidence from outside the document that supports one or the other of those analyses. And if you don't know any evidence from outside the document, it's going to be very difficult to earn this point. So this is where it really comes into play that you need to know that content. Kennedy, I like that you're connecting women's suffrage movement here, though, but that is not from the right time period. So that is definitely relevant information, and you're connecting those ideas well, but we have to make sure our answer is from the right time period. And the women's suffrage movement is quite some period of time after this. So we want to stick with things that happen in the time frame of the question, which is the Revolutionary era from 1765 to 1800. So we got to make sure our evidence falls in that time frame. Ava, I think you're on the right track here with women not being able to vote. That is definitely true in this time period. Good job. Kyle says they couldn't own land. That was not universally true, but and so that's a good example of, I tell my kids all the time, avoid absolutes, because they're very hard to prove because they're rarely true. So there were circumstances under which women could own land, and many women did own land in their own right. So we could say rarely own land, and that would make it true, and that would be a better response, right? But couldn't vote, absolutely true. Usually we're homemakers, so traditional gender roles, you can throw that in there. That's all fine. Good job. Not allowed to vote. All right, these are pretty good. You want to give specific evidence that supports Crane's argument. Really good evidence for this would be something like Jane Adams, or not Jane Adams, wrong Adams. It's late at night. Abigail Adams, the wife of John Adams, and her "Remember the Ladies" statement and the letters that she wrote to her husband, where she indicated to him that while they're giving, talking about political liberty and political freedom and things like that, don't forget about the ladies. How about we get a little bit of that? And of course, the response of the gentleman who wrote the Constitution was, I don't think so. So that's good evidence to support Crane's argument as well. Okay, let's go on to the next one. Doing pretty good on that one. Okay, now we're going to support Zagari's argument with some specific historical evidence. The exact same thing we did in that last question, except this time we're going to support the other side. We're going to do this one really quick because we need to keep moving. We got 20 minutes left and a bunch more questions to do. Homespun movements, like that, Colton. Good job. Now connect it to the question. There's Abigail Adams. Good job. We got Betsy Ross in there. Daughters of Liberty. Excellent. Good SFI to support this. Now, one thing I need you to do, though, Jordan, we can't just name drop our evidence. We can't just say Daughters of Liberty. Tell me who the Daughters of Liberty were a little bit more specifically, and then you're right there with that answer. What did they do with regards to the Daughters of Liberty that shows they had an evolving role in politics? You're on the right track. Just give me a little bit more detail and elaboration. Who were the Daughters of Liberty? What specifically were they doing? Good job. Creating clothes, boycotting, helping with the excellent job, Jordan. They were helping with the boycott by sewing their own homespun clothes so they didn't have to buy British clothes. Nailed it. Good job. I like that. That's what we want to do. So we're on the right track with Daughters of Liberty. We're really getting there when we say this shows how their role in politics is evolving, because they're actually participating in boycotts, actively participating in the political movements as they're trying to push towards independence. Good job. You could also find plenty of examples of that on the Patriots or on the Loyalist side as well. Good. Yes, I like this that Landon is talking about. Women responsible for the future of politics through their children. And what do we want to call that? Republican motherhood. They love Republican motherhood on the exam. Throw some of that in there. Good job. Abigail Adams felt perfectly able to express her political opinions to her husband, which meant that women were seen as political beings who could make political arguments, as Abigail Adams did. Very nice. Okay, you guys are killing that. We're going to move on from that one. That's the kind of thing we want to do.
Miss Betsy, do you mind if I chime in on one thing real quick?
Yes, please do.
So one thing that I was noticing is on the way that some of you are starting off your responses. She talked about the fact that you've got 40 minutes and you've got 3 that you've got to write. So a lot of you are starting off with like, one event from the period of this time that is not, so make sure that you realize you don't have to include the entire stem there. Just say one important event was, and then go from there so you can shorten down the response. The other thing is, and in looking at some of the interpretation that some of you had earlier, because there's a lot of you, and so we're trying to parse through that. Just if you look at the two paragraphs and you look at the first line of each one. So if you're struggling to understand kind of what are the perspectives of each person, the first one is, the revolutionary moment was neither radical nor a watershed. Watershed meaning a turning point for American women. So now stop there. So he said it's not a turning point for American women. Okay. So then go to the next one. The coming of the American Revolution created new opportunities for women. And so you can figure some of these things out and save yourself some time by, looking at certain portions of both of those, and also cutting down the time with the response by not including the entire stem when you're responding to it. So anyhow, just wanted to mention that.
Yes, very good. Yeah, the biggest issue with SAQ, I think, is the time constraint. That is not very much time to write quite a bit of stuff and to read a stimulus, to think it through, to, think through your answer. One more thing I want to throw in about that, just as general SAQ skill set, read the whole question before you start answering. In fact, I would recommend, and I recommend to my students, that you really quickly take the time to read all 4 of the 4 different questions they're going to give you. And the reason for that is this is just good test taking strategy in general. Start with the one you feel the most confident about, because you absolutely do not want to run out of time before you get to the easy one. So start with the easiest one. Start with the one you feel the most confident about. The one you feel the shakiest about, do that one last, because you want, if you're going to have to run out of time before you finish, run out of time on the one that you weren't sure about anyway. So read all 4 prompts first, read all 3 questions from each prompt. And before you start answering the prompt, carefully read all 3 questions, because the golden rule of SAQ, never quote golden rule number 1, golden rule number 2, you cannot double dip. So if you put an answer for B and it's really a better answer for C, and you put it again for C, you're only getting 1 point for that. So you want to read all 3 questions to make sure that you're putting the best information for each answer. And you don't want to write a big answer for B and then read C and say, oh goodness, this would have been a better answer for C, because you can only get the 1 point for the same answer. You can't double dip and get 2 points for the same answer. So that's just some general SAQ tips.
That's perfect that you mentioned that. And I would say too, to that point also, and I'm sorry to interject again, I love the way you framed that. For most of my students, this first one is historically the most difficult one, because you've got to look between the 2. And if you can't answer number 1, you don't understand the perspectives, then you're not going to be able to do B and C. So going on, like you said, to the ones that are easier is great. So sorry, that's great stuff you got there, Miss Betsy.
All right. And I think we've already gone over these possible answers that a lot of you came up with these answers, but you can take a quick look at that there, possible answers that would have earned the points. I think we hit most of these actually. And of course, you're going to get takeaways with all of these slides on them. So you can look at that a little bit more too. I'm going to keep moving because we got a lot of questions still to go here. All right. Now, here's another answers that would earn the credit for B and C. We've kind of already talked about these, so we're going to just keep moving and you can look at those a little bit later. Okay. What do you know about how short answers are scored? Type that in there for me. A lot of you are putting good tips for getting a good score, but I think what we're asking for here is exactly how many points do you get? I think that's what they mean by what do you know about how short answer questions are scored? How many points do you get? How many points do you get for each of the 3 questions that you're going to answer? You get 1 point per part of the question. So it's 3 parts. You get 1 point for each part. Each SAQ is worth a total of 3 points, and there's 3 of them. So the whole the whole SAQ section is worth 9 points, but really it's worth a percentage of your total exam score. So don't get too hung up on the points. But the important thing to know is you can earn each of those 3 points for each of the 3 questions independently. So if I miss A, that doesn't mean I can't get B and C. I can still get my 2 points for B and C, even though I got A wrong. So they're each scored independently, but it's all or nothing. You don't get partial credit for an answer to A. You either get the point for A or you don't. And when I'm scoring these on the actual exam, I put in for A, there's a slot where you put 0 or 1. I give you 0 point or I give you 1 point. And then I move to B, I give you 0 point or 1 point, and total score, you're going to get a 0, a 1, a 2, or a 3 for the whole question. You're going to get a 0 point if you got none of them, and you can get 1 point, you can get 2 points, you can get 3 points. That's how it works. And it is an all or nothing kind of thing as far as for each part of the question, you either get a point or you don't get a point. There's no partial credit for that. Now, some of the specific things you guys are putting in here are really good. Give me some specific information, some SFI to support your answer. That is always a good idea. Okay, question 2. This will always be a primary source stimulus. Give us an example of a primary source there in the chat. Well, we have 11 minutes left. Let's go fast. Primary sources are someone who has actually had firsthand, involved in the event firsthand. Something like a letter, a speech, a diary entry, a photograph can be a firsthand source. Anything that is contemporaneous with the event, and it's an individual that had firsthand contact with whatever the event was. Good job. I think most of you knew that. Let's keep moving. Okay. In this, let's do this one. It's a map again. Let's answer question A. Okay, and on A, where it says 1, do not waste time doing more than 1. It's tempting sometimes, just give 1. Now, if you're not positive the one you gave is on the money or is in the right time period, go ahead and hedge your bets and put another one. They're not going to take a point off for putting 2. But as Mr. Reese told us, time is limited. And you're going to get 1 point whether you put 1 or you put 10. So if you feel confident with your 1, just stick with the 1. Very nice. I see someone saying French and Indian War. That is the most obvious answer. And honestly, guys, just put the obvious answer. On these SAQs, don't try to be tricky. Don't try to put something nobody else is putting. Just put the obvious answer. And the obvious answer to that is the French and Indian War. So very nice. Okay, most of you, I just told you. So now, of course, everybody's putting French and Indian War, but there are other things you could definitely put, but French and Indian War, most obvious answer. Very good. Okay. And it says briefly explain. So you cannot just say French and Indian War. You have to say how the French and Indian War developed or contributed to these land claims. To what the information that we see on the map. So you must have that extra sentence that then connects the French and Indian War or whichever piece of evidence you choose to what's going on this map. And you have to say some specific things about the map and how they're connected, which a lot of you seem to be doing, which is very nice. More and more colonists moved to the New World, French and Indian War. That's fine, but let's see. I don't think that's necessarily directly connected to the answer to the question. It's not incorrect, but. Okay, War of 1812 now, that's good information, but it is not the right time period. And one trick to all of this is if they give you a set time frame and the time frame of this map is 1763, up until 1763. Of course, the War of 1812 is after that. So that's not going to be evidence they're going to let you get credit for just because it's not in the right time frame. Treaty of Paris, nice. That's good information there. Pretty good. All right, we're going to move on to the next one. Okay, second question B for the same map. So that again, that first question was a cause question. This one's an effect question. Okay. Very nice, Colton. The British Crown passed the Royal Proclamation preventing the expansion of the colonies to prevent further conflict with Native Americans. A very good job. I like that. That's going to be a good answer that earns the point. They wanted to control the American colonies more. Good. Disputes in the Ohio River Valley. Well, that was actually a cause of the French and Indian War, not a result, but continuing conflict with Native Americans in the Ohio River Valley definitely would be a good answer to this. Okay, getting some pretty good answers here. You just need to give something one specific effect, and you have to, again, directly connect it to the information that's actually on that map. So things about conflict with Native Americans in the Ohio River Valley, things about attempts by the British to increase control over their colonies so that they can help recoup some of their costs of the war, things about increasing conflict between the British and the colonists, same thing, because of the British attempts to tax them and increase control over their colonies to recoup costs from the war. The fact that the French are completely gone now, so the British have complete control in North America would be fine. So anything like that would be fine. The French had to give up all territories and this ended the military threat to the British. Very good, Ella. Okay, we're going to move on, and we're not going to answer C for this one right now because we are running out of time, and I really want to look at that last format of question really quick. But you guys can go back and do this on your own with your takeaways and then ask your teacher to take a look at them for you. Okay, and potential answers here are on these slides as well. We've talked about a couple, but you can go back and double check those. Okay, questions 3 and 4. This is where you're going to get a choice, and this is where we're going to include periods 1 and periods 9. So you can either pick a question from the first half of the content or a question from the second half of the content. If you're better with colonial America and you feel more comfortable with that, do the first half. If you just learned about Cold War and you want to answer the question about that, then pick that one. So this is a good one because you get a choice of content. Often the sort of approach or the key concept of these questions will be the same. It'll just be a different time period. That's the way they do it quite often. Okay. And let's just recap the idea that I don't know if I even remember to mention. You must answer these questions in complete sentence in paragraph format. You cannot bullet point. You will not earn points for bullet pointing on these questions. They must be complete sentences and in paragraph format. There's kind of dispute about whether you should label them A, B, and C or not. I would say you're probably better off labeling them A, B, and C, but that is controversial. Some teachers will tell you to put them all in one paragraph. When we're scoring, I will tell you this: if I can find an answer for B anywhere in anything you wrote on that page, then you get the point. That's what we're directed to do. So you can write it all in one paragraph, but a lot of times it helps you to organize your thoughts and to make sure you've fully answered all 3 questions if you label A, B, and C. So I really think it helps you more than it helps with your score to label them A, B, and C. But whether you label them or not, if you have the answer to A, B, 3 different answers that are appropriate for A, B, and C, you will get all 3 points.
As a reader, Betsy, do you prefer to see it in a paragraph form or in and when you say bulleted, I think that we understand that it's just that the responses don't need to be bulleted, but like you can put a bullet to represent A and answer that, a bullet to represent B and do that. do you prefer to see it separated because of the ease to find
Yeah.
it, or do you prefer to see it in a paragraph form? What's the thought on that?
Honestly, I think it slightly ups your chances of earning the point to label it A, B, and C, because you are scoring sometimes 2 of these a minute when you really get going. And so that reader is looking for A, B, and C. And if you, I call it signposting, that's the debate term. If you label it, if you signpost it and make it, I always tell my kids, make it easy for them to give you the points. Make it easy for them to find your answer. If you label it, it's easier for them to find what you thought was the answer to A, the answer to B, and the answer to C. And it makes it easier for them to score it and give you the points. Now, does that mean there was some debate in the past about, well, if I put the right answer for B under C, am I going to lose the point? Absolutely not. I can tell you that for sure. If you have the answer for C anywhere on that page, you get a point for C. It does, so don't worry about that too much. But I do think it helps. First of all, it helps you organize your thoughts and make sure you've fully addressed every part of the prompt. And it does make it a little easier for the scorer to find your answer and give you those points if you label them A, B, and C. I know some teachers don't encourage students to do that. I think, there's definitely arguments for both, but I do encourage my kids to label A, B, and C. And
Good
in
deal.
scoring, I found that probably increased students' chances of earning those points if you label it that way. I think a lot of times when they try to do a whole paragraph, you kind of just go stream of consciousness and you kind of lose track of, have I fully answered all 3 parts? Perhaps. Depends on the student, though, of course. I've seen plenty that are answered in a whole paragraph and they're amazing, incredible. They get the points for sure. So
I got a direct message question. So, and I just want to address, it was basically a clarification. So do we label A, B, and C, but in a complete paragraph form? But I always tell, go ahead. You can address that.
Well, you're still writing in a paragraph format, meaning multiple sentences. But you just put an A by the part you think is the answer to A, and a B by the part you think is the answer to B, and a C by the part you. And these questions will scaffold almost always. They will connect together logically, as we can see with these examples we've practiced. And really what they're asking you to do with the SAQ, the reason that the SAQ is on the exam is because it is just a little chunk of the LEQ and DBQ. It's 3 different questions that all create a cohesive argument about a topic, just like you're going to do in your LEQ and DBQ. It's sort of one paragraph of an LEQ or DBQ. And so you can definitely write it that way. And just because the answers should connect together logically and build on each other. They really should, in a really, really good answer. But again, make sure you're putting a completely different answer for A, B, and C, because you cannot double div. Now,
and I know we're out of time. I know we may not get to another question, but I think this is really good stuff. Could also say that folks, and I think ultimately what she was saying about this being kind of collectively together what you would do in writing a paragraph. I think also keep in mind that, and this is a lot of times there are different devices that teachers will tell you to use in terms of the acronym, like ACE, assertion, commentary, evidence, or assertion. I don't even remember. It's AEC, I think a teacher uses at our school. What I always say is just answer the question. But like what you guys were doing earlier was saying things like you would answer the question by saying, one impact as a result of this would be increased conflict with Native Americans, period. And like Ms. Betsy said earlier, like that answers the question, but you have to then extend. So I say answer in one sentence. What I tell mine is you bullet it out, 3 different bullets for A, B, and C, but answer the question. And then that's one sentence, and then extend your thought with the piece of SFI that clarifies that. So, and that's the same as you do when you're using evidence within your DBQ for, outside evidence. It's the same thing for LEQ with that. You're just making a claim and you're reinforcing it with evidence. It's the same thing.
Yep. And I think that is the key to making sure you earn these points. Give a clear and direct and specific answer to the exact question they asked you, and then use some evidence to support that answer, and then explain how that evidence proves your answer is correct. Just the same intellectual process that you're going through when you're writing your DBQ, when you're writing your SAQ, you're doing the same thing with the SAQ. And you need a nice, direct, clear answer to the question. And what I know we're 2 minutes over, 30 more seconds. The more of my kids lose points on SAQ than for any other reason. The reason they lose points is they don't read the question. And they give a really good answer, but not to the question they were asked. Use your time to carefully read the stimulus and read the question. I promise you that will be time well spent. And I think Mr. Reese mentioned this before. Go ahead and plan it out before you start writing. Even jot down, they give you 50 million pages more than you need in those booklets. Jot down a little outline. Think through, have a little plan in your mind, spend that extra minute or two planning out your answer before you start writing. If you carefully read the question, very carefully read and analyze the stimulus, and then do a little planning before you start writing, almost always you're going to end up with a much better answer that is much more likely to earn those points than if you're just, blowing through it, reading a couple keywords in the prompt and go to writing, right? And so many times I'll see a beautiful answer and then I'll say, that is so sad you don't get any points because that was a great answer, but it was absolutely not the answer to the question that they asked you. So use that time to read the question and make sure you're answering the question that they asked you. Okay, we are out of time. If y'all want to stay an extra second, if you have any questions, please do. Like we said, you are going to get these takeaways so you can finish the rest of these yourself. But we do need you to do one more thing before you leave. We need you to get to link to this Google form and give us feedback. And this is really our verification that you attended and participated. And also we need you to make sure that you get those takeaways. We're going to give you the takeaways so that you can let your teacher know and give them some evidence that you participated. But we really need you to fill out the Google form also to verify that you actually attended and made it to the end and participated. So thank y'all for coming. Hopefully that was somewhat helpful. And as soon as you're finished with your Google form, you can go.
Enjoyed it, guys. Is the link not, can you guys not click on that link there?
Is it not?
Should be able to click on the link.
No, you can't. You can't click on the link.
Hey,
Oh.
try to click on it, not on the Zoom, but on
Right.
your Pear Deck.
Yeah, you have to click on it on the Pear Deck, not
Yeah.
on the Zoom screen.
It's not working for Pear Deck either.
Is it not? Is it working for anybody else? I'm just curious. Hang on, let me see if I can pull it over here. It's working for me. I'm going to copy the link and I'm going to see if I can post it in anyway from here and see.
Yeah, it's not working for me either.
All right, so here we go. Check the chat. If you guys could look in the chat, you should have access to that now. See if that works and let me know. Camden, y'all let me know there.
That worked.
Yeah, that worked, Mr. Reese.
Great. Okay, thanks, Colton. Appreciate it.
Did we actually end up with 55 kids in here?
I think by the end it was a ton. A lot of good folks tonight. There was one, there's a few kids, there was a Ella, it was like an Ella and a Camden, like they kept cutting up and I don't know what was wrong with them.
In the chat?
No, I'm kidding. They're my kids.
Oh, they're your kids.
They're the few of mine that showed up.
Why'd you have to expose me, Mr. Reese?
Hey, well, don't be that guy,
Hello. Can anyone?
We can hear you a little bit like that.
Hey, Jamie, this is Brandy Richard. I've been trying to respond to you in the messages. Teacher here. I met you this summer at A+.
Yes. Okay. Oh, yes. How are you?
Good. I was trying to explain that my county doesn't allow Zoom, so I'm actually presenting a Google Meet, and the kids are watching your Zoom through my screen.
How about that? Boy, you got to get clever with that. That's really
yeah. So there was about another 20 kids in there, and that Pear Deck should have been.
Wow.
Oh, yeah.
I thought there were more. There seemed like there were more in the Pear Deck than there were in the Google chat. So
that's what I was thinking too. That explains it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I kept messaging in the chat because he kept saying last call for teachers. I'm like, I promise I'm here.
Bye.
My messages.
Well, good deal. Well, I'll make sure, Brandy, I'll make sure to get you in there. Remind, and because I've got this form up, 1 second. Can you remind me, can you spell your first and last name for me again?
Randy with a Y, last name Richard, spelled like Richard.
Gotcha. Okay. We just have to track. It's a form that we do on the end, just if any teacher showed up. So we got it.
Yeah, I'm
Very
having to
good.
go to all three of them so that my students can, so I can broadcast it on Google Meet.
Bless your heart. My goodness.
That's a
We
lot.
yeah, we fought that for a while in Madison County too when I was there, and finally they kind of conceded and let us roll with it. So, but yeah, well, good deal. Good for you that you're able to make it work for your kids. So that's awesome.
Yeah. Well, thank you guys.
You got it.
Thanks
You
for
got it. We'll talk
coming.
to you soon.
How many do we have left here?
We've got like about 13. We'll give them a few. Anybody else have any other questions here? If not, we're gonna end the meeting for those who are not presenting, or for Miss Betsy and I guess. Anybody else? Any questions? Would y'all go study or something? Yeah, go study, go do something, go write a SAQ. You've got
Is
homework.
that your kids?
Yes.
My kids, well, at least one time they accidentally were in my session and they were like, oh,
Yeah.
can I
And
see somebody else besides me, you? But they didn't
Yeah.
say that, but I'm pretty sure that's what they were thinking. So
Well, that was part of the reason why I didn't want to present this week. Once I found out that I was actually that my kids were in here, I wanted them to hear from other folks. So
if you ask Rhonda, she'll move them into a different session or move. Yeah.
yeah, it's good. Yeah, if it happens, if I note that it's going, because I haven't looked ahead in the schedule, but if I know that it's happened again, then we will for sure. So anyhow,
Well, I
okay.
rolled off of iTip, so now I'm just the presenter and don't have to worry about kids getting in
Yeah.
and all that.
Yeah, I was we were on the grant, and then just by nature of there for a while. Hang on, I got one more. Okay, I've removed everybody. It's just the two of us now. I got off the grant, and we were able to I guess, and I think it was anybody who's presenting could get, have their students come in, and so I had, we still had ours rolling in, but now I'm like, I took a year off, and now I'm getting back into it, and now I'm in iTip, and we had all the expectations in iTip are are like, come to the conference, go to, do this and that, which is fine. I told Rhonda was like, she was very gracious about, if you want to, you do something different, whatever. And I said, I need the refresher this year. So I said, whatever I can do, I'm going to go ahead and jump in and, go ahead and participate with. So I really enjoyed the fall conference, just being there and listening and sharing and talking with folks who were, just getting into it. And it is reinvigorating to, how it is when anytime that you're able to get around folks, and by no means am I an expert at all, but just to be able to share what you've done with other folks, that's the way. And we look at that in learning a lot. You learn a lot by talking and sharing and teaching. And so it's been really, I've just been so glad to get back into it and be around some folks this year, again, that are getting into it. I'm looking forward to the fall conference. I will tell you one thing. I signed up. I told Rhonda I would do the that TAH thing.
Oops, you froze up there. Are you there? I think I lost you. Jamie? Yep.
Hey, Betsy, can you hear me?
Hey, there you are. I
Sorry, my,
lost you
my
there.
computer went dead. I'm surprised that I was still actually in. I had to plug it in real quick. But no, I was saying that I'm doing the TAH. They've got the resources, and I guess there's like a day. It was like evaluate these resources, and it will be like a discussion on, whatever, and giving some feedback on some of this stuff. And I was like, yeah, that's great. And then I got the packet, and it's like 96 primary source documents that we're supposed to read before we get there, and it's formatted like, and it's a lot of it is it's typewriter type primary source material, but it's like the original manuscripts of these things, and so it's a lot. It's a whole lot.
Yikes.
But anyhow, so
That does sound it. Now, are you getting paid for that?
no, that was just a session. It was
Ooh,
just
that's a lot.
a learning session. Yeah, I'm going to try to soak up as much as I can, but it's a lot to do and still try to do your job. So
Yes. Yeah.
well,
Well,
I
I definitely
Well-
felt like that iTip grant was awesome and fantastic. It was a lot of stuff though.
yeah.
So I was sad when it was over, but also this year I'm kind of able to take a breath a little bit more and not have quite so much going on and so much paperwork and things to turn in. And
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I'm I'm also doing my national boards. I've got the second half of that this year. So I
yeah,
mean it is just
I think I've decided at this point I don't have enough years left to make that
I
worthwhile
hear
for
you.
me.
I hear you. Well, my school is paying they're paying for us to do it. So
Oh, that's nice.
right. So I couldn't turn that down, but it's just a lot. I'm ready to be back at a point. When I left Buckhorn, I did it because I wanted to, a little bit more of a challenge, a little bit of, something new.
Mhm.
And now I'm like, okay, I just wanted to calm down. I just want to just
Yes.
come into the classroom and teach and, work with kids. And,
Yep.
so we'll get to that point, but
Yep.
so I've got this filled out. I'm going to submit that teacher attendance form, and, we should be good to go on there. And I guess you got the takeaways, right? You've got the,
Oh, I did not do the takeaways. Let me do that.
okay.
Okay. How do I do that? I think I need to do that over here, don't I? Maybe.
Let's see. I gotta type this last thing here.
Do I need to end the session and then it'll say takeaways?
I think that is right, because you'll end it and it'll give you the option to publish the takeaways.
Okay. And we want to name this APUSH session 1
Yeah, and then I think
and date,
and the date, yeah.
which is the 10/26.
Yeah, and then I think you put
And
both
then
of our names in there too.
Yes, Reese Russell. Okay. Save and end session, and then I want to generate takeaways, publish takeaways. And I think that Rhonda sent an email saying to just send the takeaways from Tuesday and don't worry about doing it after that. Was that right to her?
Oh, was that right? I did not know. I didn't know.
But I might share it with her anyway. But that's what that email said, I thought.
Oh, that's right. She said once it's published, the link just needed to be sent one time. But is this the same? I don't know that I understand that quite well, because this would be a different
Hope I did it right.
folder. No, publishing it is right, but she said something about only having to send her the link the first time. But if it's the one that was sent earlier
It's not me.
is not you, so it would be in somebody else's
Okay, so
Google
I
Drive.
probably do need to do this. Now I'm confused about this because it says share takeaways, and then below it says share this link with your students. Well, that's not what we want to do. Didn't it send it to them automatically when I click? And it says share to classroom.
Share to Classroom will give you a link to put in like Google Classroom or something
Right,
like that,
and
so
that's
that the
not
kids
what
can
we
click
want.
on.
So it should, once I click share takeaways, it should have sent it to their email, right?
Should have. Let me hang on. I'm trying to look here in the this document here. Let's see see if they got the takeaway thing here.
Let me see if I can find it and make sure I got it.
It says publish takeaways at the end of the session. You only need to share your folder with me once. So what you may have to do is go into your Google Drive and find Pear Deck takeaways, and then share that the link to that folder. Maybe that's it. I feel like maybe.
Monday night, it wasn't APUSH that I was doing, and it was, and Kelly shared hers. So she did the sharing, so the folder was in hers, and so I didn't.
Do you see one? Maybe now since you've published, I think it would automatically generate a folder in your Google Drive.
What is that? That's not even Pear Deck. What is that? That is not.
I can't
Pear
see
Deck.
your. Oh yeah, I can. Yeah, I can. Here we go.
Okay, let's see.
Pear Deck. Let's see. What about recent? Would it pop up maybe?
Should be folders. Where's the folders?
Right.
Okay. Okay, I've got a Pear Deck folder in here. Pear Deck takeaways folder somewhere here. Okay, I think it's just in the Pear Deck folder. I hope it's in here.
Well, let's see.
There's the takeaways.
Mine are
APUSH session 1. That should be it, right? No, this is from another year. Did I not do it right?
let's
Is this
see.
it? No.
Yeah, and you know what? Betsy, it may take a minute to do all that. It might take a minute to generate it and push to your folder. I think you could probably always circle back, like tomorrow or later if you see it come in.
I
And
think
if
it's
not,
this.
then
Oh, wait, no. Is that this year? Yes, 1/10/26. This is it.
there you go. There you
I
go.
just need to share that with Rhonda. Wait a minute, where's the share thing?
Go
I
to
need
those
to
two
share
dots
that.
to the right. Look right there where you see those people. The little. Go to your left with your cursor. Your left. There you go. Right there. Just to the right of where it says APUSH 11026.
Okay.
Keep going
I've
to the
got your
right.
picture in front of there.
There you go.
There we
Oh,
go.
there you go.
Okay,
Maybe.
so
There
then
we
I
go.
just need to put Rhonda. And that ought to do it.
Should do it.
All right.
Good deal.
Well, thanks for your help.
Yeah, absolutely. I enjoyed it. Like I said, I missed doing this last year. I missed it a lot. So I'm glad to get back to engaging with it. But yeah. Hey, and I'll reach out to you about Model U, and I appreciate you offering some of that. We're like I said, we've got it. We've only got 7 students right now, but they're very motivated. And I've got one young lady who is basically taking it by the horns, and she is the kind of the I've told her this is student run. I will sponsor. I'll help. I'll learn too, but you're going to help. You're going to run the meetings. You're going to do all that.
Yeah.
And so we're just looking to try to make sure we know what we're doing and where to plug in and what we can and can't do based on our experience. And so I'll touch base with you maybe later this week or sometime early next week, and maybe you can give me a little tutoring. So
All right. That sounds good. Happy to help.
all right, sounds good. Well, have a good night, Betsy. If you need anything, holler at me.
You too. Thanks.
Okay.
Bye.
See ya. Bye.
Figure out how to fix this. And